Mr. Anil Kadam. He is presently positioned as the Director of EcoStruxure and Cybersecurity Business at Schneider Electric. With an experience over 19 years in the industry, he is an expert in solution architecting, technical marketing, pre-sales of smart city and smart grid utility, renewable energy integration, and many more. He is also actively involved in the development of digitization and future tech applications for better and sustainable world. Mr. Kadam will discuss securing the next generation digital networks for smart electricity. So delegates, let's welcome Mr. Anil Kadam.
That was quite a comprehensive information what Mr. Akilur mentioned on the cities. See, what Mr. Akilur mentioned is there will be a lot of transactions happening between different stakeholders in a city. What you're seeing is a city here. And what is different in the new energy landscape of a city is you will see a lot of course, renewables coming in. A lot of renewables on your rooftop, maybe at the vicinity of your park or on your building, whatnot. What is very important is new forms of stakeholders who are going to be interacting the way they interact today for any commodities. Example, today, maybe 10, 15 years back for a taxi, you had to pre-book some an agency, tell him at this time you come, I need this vehicle, etc., etc. You're getting taxis, but today you just pick up your phone, you open an app, Ola or Uber or XYZ app, and here you get a ride at your preferred price range to a location, pay as you go. Days are not far that you will see such transactions happening for energy commodity also. You may see a day, probably not in the near future, I should say, that you can choose providers. You see there is somebody else providing units at a better rate and you switch on the same meter, same wires, you switch a provider. That's a kind of digital proliferation we're going to see. Similarly, somebody has excess energy in their behind the meter energy resources and they are okay to give it to the grid at a specific price. So my vehicle is fully charged. I'm not using it for next 2 days. I have a home storage. It is got some amount of energy. I have a rooftop solar. I have, that is producing some amount of energy. Probably I'm not in the house for next 3-4 days or a week. I'm holidaying. And what will this distributed energy resources do behind the meter? I can just open an app, and say that this equipment is available for a discharge on this particular price levels. Come what at the time of use pricing. Okay, here is your equipment which is interacting with the grid on the platform, producing money for you, as Mr. Akilur said. And then while it is producing money for you, instead of sitting idle, it is also helping the utility to save the money because it is so much so capex and infrastructure avoided cost for the utility because there is a handshake in real time between the stakeholders. So you see, the stakeholders, as Mr. Akirul said, consumer is becoming a prosumer. There is an aggregator who's coming between the utility and the consumer. Okay, and there are multiple DERs who are themselves the stakeholders. Who are interact. All this is possible. With technology. Another point is a lot of distributed energy resources are renewable in nature, which is making the grid smart in a city or for a state or a nation or whatever it is, right? But they produce when there is light, when there is wind, but probably not necessarily when you want. Therefore, you need to probably store it somewhere, discharge when you want, you need to do that balancing act. Therefore, there are dynamic, systems to be managed. So the grid is only going to get more and more and more complex, but more and more efficient. So in that way, it is going to be green. How is it going to happen? You saw a plethora of digital technologies available at different use case. Now, for every use case, there is data going from a source all the way to multiple stakeholders, utilization of their data, and there is a feedback control to complete that use. Simple case, the data has to reach, example for discharge of a behind the meter storage or an electric vehicle into the grid. There has to be data going from my app to the platform provider to say that I am okay to discharge in so and so. So there's a data flowing from my app, from my mobile, Android, iOS to the platform aggregator. From the aggregator, he has to orchestrate, and that has to come all the way through a smart meter or an internet, or it has to come and reach my electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Okay. From there, the commands has to be happening. right? So there's so much back and forth data in this new IoT world which is going to be moving on. Now, imagine if this network is not secure. What kind of havoc can this produce? Somebody somewhere mischievously switches off all the charging infrastructures, example, or maybe he gives a command. So it's a very easy and open network. Somebody goes and trips off all the houses, or probably somebody is trying to disconnect a large substation from the grid. You may get into a blackout kind of a situation in a city or a state or a country. Therefore, it is so important to secure the transaction. Now, what are the different ways of securing the transaction? A, those equipments what you're using, be it equipments, be it the hardware or the software or the platforms itself, have to be developed in a very, very secured way. That means there has to be a proper standard which is governing the development process. So in our industrial control systems in the power sector, probably we are now zeroing on to IEC 62443. There are many other standards for it, but there is a specific standard which helps an OEM to develop a product secure. Point number one, so that I don't have any kind of malware or embedded trojans in the development. Second, when I put all this equipment, software, systems, and hardware together for a use case or for an application, there is a definite way to connect it in the form of a communication architecture, okay, and the data. So this architecture should also be designed as per a standard so that it becomes robust. It gets into a defense in depth kind of an architecture, so that even with an intrusion you should be able to be resilient, not to become victim of the attack or even an mistaken act. So the systemic view is one aspect, the equipment view is another aspect. Now then comes two other processes, which is the policy and the procedure. Now, by and large, many technical systems are operated by an electric utility in a city, right? That's the electrical distribution company. There could be many other stakeholders providing ancillary services of efficiency improvement, optimization, productivity improvement to this electric utility. Now, the technical systems and the people system, should be governed by the policies and procedures, which has to be quite robust. So it's a three pillar of the entire puzzle. One is the technology which is supporting the policy and the procedure. Together, a system can be resilient. Technical system alone can only do so much. Without a policy and a procedure, probably you may not probably be able to create a very robust and secure system. Let me give you an example. As Mr. Akhiral said, there are technical systems what we have put, and there could be a lot of hardware, software everywhere. But every hardware and software has an evolution of version, and it is dependent on many other products in the background. Example, I'm developing a box, an energy box. That energy box has a hardware and it has a operating system, right? When I delivered that energy box in the project, that box came up with say V1.0, software or an operating system. But there could be some kind of vulnerability what I may find out as an OEM over a period of time, and I'll declare that there is a vulnerability in V1.0 software which is delivered in so and so boxes. It is time to upgrade it to V2.0 using this patch. Now, if there is no policy and there is no process to manage that patch, or manage that vulnerability by patching it, there's as much open loop for somebody to come through that vulnerability. Okay, second, when I'm giving a command or somebody is giving a command for any action, you'll have to prima facie check who is the actor who is, trying to do this action. Whether he or she is authorized, whether he or she has the access, is he or she available in the company. So these are all called role-based access has to be enabled, which is very, very important part of the three process part. And the technical systems will exist. And then since the threat landscape is increasing so much, and there are many digital touch points. See, we never thought that our substations, our home automation system, our building automation system, our storage management, or maybe generation management will connect to the internet. We never thought. We always thought that it is secure inside the compound. We have our own control systems. No. There are a lot of new technologies which are coming into play. In the future technologies, we would want to take use of. Example, cloud technology. Gone those days, I would want to have my own servers, my own, networking storage. Probably today, I would dump everything on cloud company, depend on them for infrastructure, and run my system. Automatically, you're connected to an external. Or maybe I can put to another service provider who has a huge data crunching capability. I put all my data for asset performance management and come up with an intellect, which I use to execute probably my asset performance action or maybe maintenance schedule. So therefore, it is connected to the entire world. We should be not thinking that my system is secluded. Therefore, it's very, very important to have continuous threat detection beyond the defense in depth. That means probably you should have those systems sitting in your network, which is trying to surveillance the traffic of the data, what is flowing, the packets, why is it flowing, and learn over a period of time, so that in the slightest incident of suspicion, it alerts the operator, and people will start taking action, and so that it doesn't lead into a catastrophe. So it's very, very important that I will summarize it in a very simple way. Technical systems, policies and procedures, okay, all have to come together, and it's very important that the technical systems once put has to support the policies and procedures. Therefore, the technical systems should be futuristic, but in the utility space and in the or a smart city operations per se, there has to be pedigree of people who understand operations technology. Of course, there are a lot of people who understand IT in the whole landscape, but I think we should increase more and more competence and people who can understand operations technology, and then apply the cyber security principles for OT to create a more resilient and secure. So I pause here, Akansha, for any questions, or probably we can move on.